The station orbited a dead moon, gray and silent, a relay point for 1,000 species who had learned to fear very little in this galaxy. The Kryveth Dominion had built it 3 centuries ago, back when they still believed themselves the apex hunters of known space. Their ships were fast, their claws were faster, and their history was written in the bones of every predator species that had ever challenged them. Then humanity arrived. Not with warships, not with armies. They arrived with a single trade vessel, the Meridian Rose, requesting docking rights and offering something no one expected. Livestock. Cattle, they called it. Food animals bred over 10,000 years for one purpose, to feed a species that had, apparently, decided long ago that they would never again go hungry. The Kryveth found this fascinating, and more than a little pathetic. They farm their food, sneered Administrator Osk, watching the docking feed with his second, a broad-shouldered enforcer named Threll. No hunt, no struggle, no proof of dominance. They simply grow it. Threll's mandibles clicked in something like amusement. Soft creatures. I have read the reports. Their claws are dull. Their teeth are flat. They cannot even see in darkness. Then why, Osk mused, does every predator species in this sector avoid their border space? Threll had no answer for that. He assumed it was superstition. Old fear passed down like myth, the kind that outlives its reason. He was wrong. The Meridian Rose docked 3 hours later, and its captain, a woman named Elena Reyes, 41 years old, silver threading through dark hair, walked the station's promenade with the calm of someone who had done this 100 times before. She wore no weapon. She needed no escort. She simply walked, observed, and occasionally smiled at things that startled the local crews. She shows no fear, Threll reported, watching from the security bay. Interesting, or foolish. Test her, Osk said, quietly. See what she does. So they did what predators do. They sent something to see if she would run. It happened in the lower cargo bay, where the station kept its menagerie, exotic creatures collected from a dozen worlds, kept for trade and spectacle. Among them was a Draxel war beast, 400 kilograms of muscle and instinct, kept sedated for transport. Someone, Threll would later claim it was an accident, left its enclosure unlocked as Elena passed through on her way to inspect the cargo manifests. The beast woke. It smelled something unfamiliar, and it charged. The Kryveth guards on duty did what their species always did when faced with something larger and angrier than themselves. They hesitated, calculating the odds, weighing the value of intervention against the risk of injury. Elena did not hesitate. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She turned, planted her feet, and threw her weight into the beast's flank as it passed, redirecting 400 kilograms of muscle just enough that its charge missed the cargo technician frozen behind her. She hit the ground hard. The beast spun back, snarling, and Elena, bleeding from a gash along her arm, looked it directly in the eyes. And she did not look away. "Hey!" she said, low and steady, the way you'd speak to a frightened dog rather than a monster. "Hey, easy. Easy now." The beast paused, confused, perhaps, by the absence of fear scent it had been bred for centuries to detect. Elena kept talking, kept that same steady voice, slowly raising one empty hand. Not in aggression, but in something the Draxel handler later called, with visible disbelief, reassurance. By the time security arrived with tranquilizers, the beast had gone still, calmed by a woman half its size who had simply refused to be prey. Threll watched the footage 12 times before he spoke. "She was unarmed," he said finally. "She was unarmed," Osk confirmed. "And she did not run. She did not run." Threll set down the data slate, his mandibles motionless for the first time in years. "Administrator, in our history, in any species' history, when has prey stood its ground against a predator 4 times its mass and won, without violence?" Osk didn't answer immediately. He was reading the deeper files now, the ones the Dominion had always dismissed as exaggeration. Reports from 100 years of first contact scattered across a dozen species. Reports of humans walking unarmed into war zones to pull the wounded from rubble. Reports of humans feeding enemies as readily as allies. Reports, buried, ignored, of humans doing the irrational thing again and again and somehow surviving it. We called them soft, Osk said quietly. We called them prey. He pulled up the security feed one more time, watching Elena Reyes stand over an unconscious war beast, pressing a torn strip of her own uniform against her bleeding arm without a trace of panic on her face. I do not think, he said, that we understood what we were looking at. Elena Reyes never learned about the conversation that followed in the Dominion's command deck. She never knew that Administrator Osk quietly rewrote the station's threat assessments that night, moving humanity from Category 3, manageable, to a classification that had no formal name, because no one had ever needed one before. She only knew that when she boarded the Meridian Rose the next morning, arm bandaged, coffee in hand, the Kryveth dockworkers stepped aside for her, not out of protocol, out of something that looked, unmistakably, like respect. Strange creatures, Threll murmured, watching the trade vessel depart. They do not hunt. They do not need to prove their strength. And yet every instinct in my body tells me they are the most dangerous thing in this station. Osk said nothing. He simply watched the ship vanish into the dark, and thought about 10,000 years of quiet breeding, quiet farming, quiet patience. A species that had tamed its own violence so thoroughly that it had forgotten it was a predator at all, until something threatened what it loved. Then it remembered everything, and for the first time the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human.